Imagine a world where trust is a precious commodity, one that we share only with those we believe are closest to us. You confide your deepest fears, your most fragile truths, in someone, only to one day discover that those very confessions have been used against you. Not in open confrontation, but in silence behind closed doors. It's a realization that hits like a cold wave. You thought they were on your side, but they were never really there. They were playing a game you didn't even know existed. But how well do you really know the people around you? What if I told you that the idea of true friendship, of loyalty in its purest form, is one of the most dangerous illusions we cling to in life? Beneath the surface of camaraderie, shared drinks, and the friendly smiles, there exists a battlefield silent, strategic, and driven by influence and ambition. This is where Machiavelli enters the story. His name is still echoed through the halls of history, not because he championed kindness or morality, but because he dared to reveal the brutal truths about human nature and political power. Among the most unsettling of his revelations is the idea that no one is truly your friend. Now, this isn't some dark warning meant to poison your trust in everyone around you. Quite the opposite. Machiavelli's insights are meant to open your eyes to show you the game at play. Once you recognize the rules of the game, you become a better player, and more importantly, you stop being a pawn. But why does this matter? Why is it so crucial for us to understand that friendship, true, unconditional loyalty is a myth? In a world where we are taught from childhood that friendships are based on love and mutual respect, why is it so hard to accept the reality that many of the relationships we value most are transactional? Machiavelli answers this question head-on with unsettling clarity. In his work, The Prince, written over 500 years ago, Machiavelli stripped away idealism and revealed the mechanics of politics and power in its rawest form. He didn't believe in the romanticized notions of loyalty or the nobility of friendship. For him, alliances, whether personal or political, are born out of necessity and fear, not love or integrity. This is a concept that runs contrary to everything we're taught to believe, but history is littered with examples of it. Take, for instance, the fall of numerous powerful dynasties, where relationships that seemed unshakable crumbled under the weight of ambition and self-interest. What Machiavelli understood, and what many modern thinkers have echoed, is that the core of all human relationships, even the most intimate ones, is based on self-interest. Friends may stand by you for a time, but once their interests no longer align with yours, they become enemies, not out of malice, but out of the natural ebb and flow of self-preservation. And why is it so difficult to accept this? Because we live with a fundamental need to believe in the goodness of others. We need to believe that the people we trust have our best interests at heart. Yet, time and again, we are shown that when it comes to loyalty, the bonds we share are fragile, conditional, and ultimately temporary. Think back to moments in your life when friends drifted away, or when alliances suddenly faltered. How many friendships dissolved once your success began to rise, or when your usefulness diminished? These stories of betrayal are not isolated incidents. They are patterns that repeat themselves across cultures, across generations. Machiavelli's insight is clear. People are not inherently loyal. They are loyal because it serves them. And when that loyalty is no longer beneficial, it vanishes. But here's the hard truth. This isn't some inherent flaw in human nature. It's simply the way power dynamics work. Machiavelli didn't advocate for a life of mistrust and paranoia. Instead, he encouraged strategic trust, giving it sparingly, wisely, and never blindly. Trust should be earned, not assumed. And while this may sound cold, it is not cynicism. It is realism. This understanding of human relationships allows you to operate from a position of strength, not weakness. By recognizing the fragility of loyalty, you empower yourself to act with discernment rather than naivety. The hardest lesson Machiavelli imparts is this: in the game of power, naivety is the most dangerous flaw. This game is not about ruthless domination, but about understanding the rules, recognizing the players, and navigating relationships with wisdom, not emotion. So, let me ask you, if someone's support of you depends on their gain, was it ever truly support? And what does that mean for how you trust people moving forward? Stay with me, because the answers to these questions will reveal the most powerful insights on relationships and trust, changing how you navigate the world forever. In the world Machiavelli described, loyalty is not born out of love, but from the most primal forces, necessity and fear. It's a sobering truth, but one that explains so much of human behavior throughout history. People seek alliances, not because they are deeply attached to one another, but because those alliances offer safety, power, and the potential for gain. And when the situation changes, when the scales tip and one side stands to lose more than it stands to gain, loyalty dissipates like mist in the morning sun. Machiavelli's views were not born from cynicism, but from an acute awareness of the human condition. In The Prince, he presents an unapologetically pragmatic view of politics and power. He does not sugarcoat reality. He understands that individuals, whether monarchs or commoners, are driven by self-interest. In a world of shifting loyalties and volatile circumstances, what remains constant is fear. Fear keeps people loyal for as long as their survival depends on it. But here's where it gets darker still. Even the relationships we cherish, even those that feel unbreakable, are often built on these fragile foundations. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy extends beyond politics into personal life. His insights apply just as much to our friendships, partnerships, and familial ties as they do to rulers navigating a volatile court. Why is this difficult to accept? It's because we've been taught from an early age that true friendship is based on mutual respect and affection. But what if I told you that friendship, at its core, is nothing more than a series of subtle transactions of give and take, of shared interests, of mutual benefit? You've likely witnessed it. The friend who seems supportive when times are good, but disappears when things get rough. The colleague who offers their assistance as long as it furthers their own agenda. The lover who grows distant when the relationship no longer serves their needs. These are the patterns that Machiavelli saw clearly, patterns that are rooted in self-preservation, not in altruism. History is full of examples where the facade of friendship crumbled when the stakes became too high. The Roman Senate, for instance, was full of supposed allies who turned on each other the moment personal ambitions took precedence. Think of Julius Caesar's assassination. His closest allies, men who had once sworn loyalty to him, were the very ones who betrayed him, believing that his rise to power threatened their own. They were not traitors because they harbored hatred for Caesar. They betrayed him because they feared losing their own power. Machiavelli understood this. He saw that loyalty and betrayal are not black and white concepts, but are tied to the shifting tides of necessity and self-interest. In his world, alliances were always fragile, always in flux, and the moment you forget that, the moment you allow yourself to believe that someone will remain loyal to you out of love or affection, you leave yourself vulnerable to betrayal. So what does this mean for you? It means that you must approach your relationships with an eye toward discernment. You don't have to be cold-hearted or manipulative, but you must recognize the dynamic at play. Friendship, loyalty, and trust are not things you can give away blindly. Instead, you must observe them carefully, measure them, and ensure that those who stand by you do so because it serves them just as much as it serves you. This may sound harsh, but it's the path to personal empowerment. Once you accept the truth about loyalty, about the fragility of human relationships, you can begin to build stronger, more strategic alliances. You will no longer be a passive participant in a game you don't understand. You will become a player, one who navigates the complexities of human connection with clarity and purpose. But what happens when you start to view your relationships through this lens? What happens when you stop assuming that others will act out of love and begin to understand that they are driven by necessity, fear, and self? The answers to these questions will change the way you view your friends, your partners, and your allies. It will force you to confront uncomfortable truths, but in doing so, it will empower you to operate from a position of strength. You will stop being manipulated by the illusions of friendship, and you will start to build relationships based on truth, relationships that are more durable because they are grounded in mutual respect and shared understanding. And, as we move forward, I will show you how to implement this wisdom, how to use it to navigate your own life, how to protect yourself from betrayal, and how to recognize when loyalty is truly earned. Betrayal is a wound that cuts deeper than any physical injury. It's not just the act itself that hurts. It's the shattering of the illusion we've created in our minds. It's the betrayal of our own expectations, the disillusionment that comes when our idealism meets the cold, hard truth of reality. When a trusted ally becomes an adversary, the emotional shock can be overwhelming. Machiavelli's philosophy doesn't shy away from this harsh truth. In fact, he confronts it head-on. He recognizes that betrayal is not an anomaly, but a recurring pattern in human history. It's a natural consequence of the self-interest that drives human behavior. And while it's painful, it's also a lesson if you are willing to learn from it. But why does betrayal hurt so much? Research in neuroscience helps explain why this emotional pain feels like physical pain. Antonio Damasio, a leading neuroscientist, discovered that the brain activates the same regions during emotional pain, like betrayal, as it does for physical pain. It literally hurts, and that hurt blinds us to the lessons hidden within it. Instead of reflecting on why we trusted the wrong person, we wallow in our pain, nursing our wounds instead of learning from them. For those brave enough to look deeper, betrayal can become a mirror. It forces us to ask ourselves uncomfortable questions. Why did I believe this person would never betray me? Was it their charm, their consistency, the shared history we built together? Or was it my own need to believe in them, to believe in the illusion of loyalty, even when all the signs pointed to something else? This is where true power begins, not in the ability to control others, but in understanding ourselves well enough to see where we are most vulnerable. This self-awareness is the first step in avoiding future betrayals. When we recognize our own weaknesses, our desire for connection, our fear of abandonment, our need for validation, we become less susceptible to the manipulations of others. Machiavelli's genius lies in his refusal to sugarcoat the truth. He warns us that love is transient, but fear remains constant. In a world where loyalty is as fluid as the tides, stability can only be built on power, not affection. When you rely on love, you expose yourself to emotional devastation when that love fades. But if you rely on power, the power to detach yourself emotionally when necessary, the power to trust, strategically you insulate yourself from the worst of betrayal. This insight can change everything. By understanding that loyalty is conditional, that even the closest relationships are vulnerable to shifting self-interests, you can begin to operate with more clarity. You stop being devastated by betrayals and start seeing them for what they are: natural, inevitable events in a world driven by competition, ambition, and survival. In our personal lives, this doesn't mean we stop caring about people. It doesn't mean we build walls around our hearts. Rather, it means we learn to connect with others from a place of emotional strength, not from desperation or dependence. We stop giving our power away, trusting blindly, or clinging to false friendships. Instead, we build alliances based on mutual respect and shared goals, understanding that these connections are valuable only as long as both parties are benefiting. What Machiavelli offers is not a call for cynicism, but for clarity. Understanding human nature is not about exploiting others, it's about stopping yourself from being exploited. Once you recognize the mechanisms of betrayal and loyalty, you can navigate relationships with wisdom and discernment. You don't need to distrust everyone around you, but you do need to understand the limits of trust and the conditions under which it can be broken. Think about the people in your life. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you thought was a friend? Have you ever felt the sting of someone turning on you when they had nothing more to gain? These are not isolated events. These are patterns that have played out across human history, and they are likely to continue playing out until we learn to recognize them for what they are. In the end, betrayal is not just a painful experience, it's a necessary one. It's the painful but essential process of confronting our own illusions, of seeing the world as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. And by doing so, we open the door to greater strength, greater wisdom, and greater power. In Machiavelli's world, appearances are everything. People do not see the world as it is, they see it through the lens of perception. This is a fundamental aspect of power. How others perceive you can often matter more than who you truly are. In politics, business, and even in personal relationships, this truth holds. People are drawn not to your authenticity, but to your image, the carefully crafted persona you present to the world. This, Machiavelli understood deeply, is where power often resides. Consider the phrase, "appearances are deceiving." It's a saying that has been repeated across cultures and generations, because it holds a timeless truth. People wear masks, not just to hide who they are, but to project something more advantageous. These masks serve as tools in the game of power. Machiavelli advised rulers to be merciful, kind, and virtuous in appearance, but to be ready to act in the opposite way when necessary. This isn't hypocrisy, it's strategy. By projecting virtue, a ruler can win the trust and affection of the people, but in the shadows, they must be ready to act decisively when power is threatened. Machiavelli was not naive about human nature. He knew that people would wear the mask of friendship, compassion, and loyalty, but that these masks were often worn for personal gain. The person who seems to support you most fervently who speaks with the kindest words, could just as easily be your greatest threat once their interests change. This doesn't mean everyone is a villain, but it does mean that to navigate the game of power, you must be constantly aware of what people are trying to achieve by being in your life. This is why Machiavelli emphasized that trust should be earned and not given freely. Trust must be based on action, not words. People's actions reveal more about their true intentions than their promises ever will. The smooth-talking friend, the colleague who showers you with praise, the partner who always knows what to say. All of these people are playing a role, not necessarily for the sake of deception, but because they understand the game. What this teaches us is that relationships are often transactional, even if they don't seem that way on the surface. People are constantly assessing the benefits of any alliance, and once those benefits are no longer perceived to be there, the alliance begins to fade. This is the nature of power. It's built not just on what people say, but on what they do, on how they act when there's nothing to gain from your success or goodwill. This may sound cold, but it is liberating once you accept it. When you stop seeing people through rose-colored glasses, you begin to see them clearly. You stop investing emotionally in people who have no true loyalty to you. Instead, you observe their behavior, their actions, and their true motivations. By doing so, you can protect yourself from manipulation and betrayal. But Machiavelli didn't just teach us to be cynical. He offered a strategy for how to build relationships that are based on mutual benefit and mutual respect. This strategy begins with understanding that appearances matter. The way you present yourself, the image you project, will dictate how others respond to you. But even more importantly, the way others present themselves to you must be assessed with an analytical eye. What makes someone's actions genuine? How do you know when a relationship is built on true mutual respect and not just a convenient alliance? The answer lies in time and consistency. People will reveal their true intentions through repeated actions over time. They will show their loyalty not through empty promises, but through their behavior when there's nothing to gain. By building relationships with this level of awareness, you don't become paranoid or suspicious. You become empowered. You no longer have to worry about betrayal because you will have already seen the signs. You'll understand the game, and you'll be able to play it in a way that works for you. Machiavelli's advice isn't about mistrusting everyone around you. It's about being smart enough to understand when trust is earned and when it is not. It's about knowing that the game of power is played through perception, through appearances, and through the subtle dance of giving and taking. And most importantly, it's about understanding that loyalty is fragile, but strength is built on strategy, clarity, and awareness. So, as you move forward, think about the people in your life. How many of them are there because of genuine affection, and how many are there because you serve a purpose for them? By recognizing this, you can begin to navigate your relationships with more wisdom. You can learn to build alliances that are based on truth and mutual respect, rather than illusion and convenience. At the core of many relationships lies emotional investment, a powerful, sometimes dangerous force that binds people together. We invest emotionally in friends, colleagues, partners, and family because we want to believe in them. We want to believe in the authenticity of their support, the sincerity of their care. But what happens when that investment is not reciprocated? What happens when the person you trust most in the world betrays you or abandons you in your time of need? Machiavelli's insights into human nature would say that this is not as unusual as we think. In fact, he might argue that this is the inevitable result of investing too heavily in emotions rather than in power dynamics. Emotional investment, while necessary for genuine connection, can cloud judgment, making us blind to the more strategic elements of relationships. Modern psychology echoes Machiavelli's warnings. Psychologist Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, makes a striking point. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. Why? Because friendship is inherently an emotional investment, and emotions can be volatile. Envy, jealousy, and insecurity can quickly turn an ally into an enemy once self-interest is threatened. This is why Machiavelli urges leaders and anyone seeking to understand human behavior to approach trust cautiously. Emotional ties, while comforting and fulfilling, come with inherent risks. The more invested you become emotionally in another person, the more vulnerable you are to their actions. A friend who knows your weaknesses, your fears, your insecurities is in a position of great power over you. Should their interests shift, or should envy take root, your trust becomes a weapon they can use against you. Think about it. How many times have you been hurt by someone you trusted deeply, someone you believed would always have your back? It's not just the betrayal that cuts deep, it's the realization that you overlooked the signs, that you failed to see that the trust you placed in them was not earned based on consistency and reliability, but on emotional attachment that clouded your judgment. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for a cold, calculating approach to relationships. He was simply teaching us to be discerning. He believed that trust should not be handed out blindly or based purely on emotional closeness. Instead, trust should be earned over time, based on actions rather than words. This requires a shift in how we approach relationships. It means stepping back, observing, and taking note of patterns over time. In his writings, Machiavelli repeatedly emphasizes that appearances can be deceiving. A person may speak kindly to you, offer support, and profess loyalty, but these gestures can be empty if they are not backed by consistent behavior. Just as in politics, where alliances shift and loyalty is often transactional, our personal relationships must also be evaluated on a more strategic level. What does this mean for you? It means learning to assess the emotional investment you make in others. Are you investing emotionally in people who show you consistent, reliable behavior? Or are you investing in those who flatter you, say the right things, and provide comfort, but whose actions are unpredictable, whose loyalty is conditional? The answer to this question isn't to abandon emotional connections altogether. We are social beings after all, and emotional bonds are essential to our well-being. But Machiavelli teaches us to approach these bonds with eyes wide open. Emotional investment should never blind us to the realities of human behavior. Relationships, even the closest ones, should be built on the recognition that all people are driven by self-interest, whether we want to admit it or not. So, as you navigate your relationships, ask yourself, are you truly seeing the other person for who they are, or are you seeing them through the lens of your own emotional needs? Are you trusting based on consistency and past actions, or based on feelings and idealized images? By becoming more aware of these dynamics, you'll be better equipped to build relationships that stand the test of time and aren't easily disrupted by emotional shifts or betrayals. This is the essence of Machiavelli's philosophy. Emotional investment is important, but it must always be balanced with strategic thinking. Trust wisely, invest wisely, and always remain aware of the shifting nature of human relationships. One of the most difficult lessons Machiavelli teaches is the cost of naivety. To trust blindly, to believe that everyone around you has your best interests at heart, is not only foolish but dangerous. And yet, this is the trap that so many fall into, believing that loyalty is unconditional, that people are inherently good, or that their affections will never change. Machiavelli recognized the inherent danger in such idealism. In a world driven by self-interest and survival, loyalty is not a constant, it's a variable, something that shifts depending on the circumstances. And if you allow yourself to believe in a world where people will always stand by you out of love or mutual respect, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak and betrayal. This is why Machiavelli advocated for calculated trust. Trust should not be freely given, it should be earned, and it should never be given to the point where it leaves you vulnerable. The naive trust in others, that belief that someone is always on your side, is not a virtue, it's a flaw. It's a flaw that Machiavelli saw as the most dangerous one a ruler, or anyone for that matter, could possess. Consider this. Have you ever trusted someone implicitly, only to have that trust shattered when your success outpaced theirs, or when you became less useful to them? How many times have people turned their backs on you, not because of some overt betrayal, but because your circumstances changed? It's not that they were evil, it's that their self-interest shifted, and your relationship with them no longer served itself. This is the painful reality that Machiavelli urges us to face. If you rely on blind loyalty, you will inevitably be disappointed. People will let you down. They may not intend to, but their interests will always come first. And that is the nature of human behavior. It's not personal, it's just the way the world works. But here's the crucial insight. Once you understand this, you can stop being a victim of it. Once you accept that loyalty is fluid, you can stop placing all your emotional security in the hands of others. You can learn to build relationships that are based on mutual benefit, where trust is earned through consistent action, not just promises or appearances. Machiavelli's message is not one of isolation or cynicism, but empowerment. By acknowledging the limits of loyalty, by recognizing that trust is something that must be earned and maintained, you can begin to build stronger, more resilient relationships. You can navigate the world with a sense of clarity and control, no longer blindsided by the inevitable betrayals that come when we expect too much from others. Emotional independence is the antidote to naivety. By detaching your sense of self-worth from the loyalty of others, you free yourself from the constant fear of betrayal. You learn to trust not just others, but yourself. You learn to rely on your own judgment, your own strength, and your own ability to navigate the complexities of human relationships without losing yourself in the process. Think about it. If you never relied on others to define your sense of security, if you never expected loyalty to be a given, how would your relationships change? How would your interactions with others evolve if you approached them with a clear-eyed understanding of their motivations? How much stronger would you be if you knew that your peace, your sense of worth, comes from within, not from the validation of others? This shift in perspective is the heart of Machiavelli's philosophy. It's not about becoming distrustful or isolated. It's about becoming self-sufficient. When you stop expecting others to always be there for you, you stop giving away your power. And when you stop giving away your power, you become truly free. Machiavelli's insight into the fragility of loyalty is not a call to abandon trust, but a call to approach it with wisdom. It's a call to stop being naive, to stop allowing your emotional needs to dictate the terms of your relationships. Once you understand this, you can begin to navigate the world with confidence, knowing that you can survive and thrive regardless of the actions of others. Betrayal hurts in a way that nothing else can. It's not just the violation of trust, it's the crushing of an illusion you've held onto, often for years. This is what makes betrayal so painful. It's not merely the act of someone turning against you. It's the realization that you were wrong about them. The image you constructed, the belief you clung to, is shattered, and in its place is a cold, uncomfortable reality. Machiavelli understood this emotional wound better than most. He wasn't the first to observe that humans are fickle, driven by self-interest, but he was one of the few to examine the depths of what that self-interest means, especially when it comes to relationships. In the game of power, those closest to you are often the ones who can hurt you the most. The friend who knows your weaknesses, the partner who has access to your heart, they hold the potential to betray you in ways that an enemy never could. And yet, this is not a betrayal in the traditional sense of the word. In a way, betrayal, when viewed through the lens of Machiavellian philosophy, is an inevitability. It happens not because someone is bad or malicious, but because they are human. They are motivated by their own ambitions, their desires, and their need for self-preservation. What feels like a betrayal might just be the natural course of events. When the scales of interest shift, when loyalty no longer serves them, when their needs or desires change, their allegiance can easily fade. This doesn't mean you should approach every relationship with suspicion, but it does mean that you should approach them with awareness. Betrayal becomes so painful because we invest so much emotionally in others. We believe that they will always have our best interests at heart. But in reality, this is a fragile assumption. The moment we assume that someone will never betray us, we give them more power over us than they should ever have. When betrayal happens, the emotional pain can be excruciating. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's research revealed that emotional pain, such as the pain caused by betrayal, activates the same parts of the brain that process physical pain. It literally hurts. And when we're in pain, we often struggle to think clearly. We're blinded by the emotional devastation, unable to recognize the lessons buried within the experience. But for those who are willing to look deeper, betrayal can become a powerful mirror. It forces us to confront not only the person who betrayed us, but also our own perceptions. Why did we believe that person would always stand by us? Was it because of their charm, their consistency, or was it because we desperately wanted to believe in them? This is where true power begins, not in controlling others, but in understanding ourselves well enough to see where we are most vulnerable. If you understand your own motivations, your fears, your desires, and your need for connection, you begin to see where you might have overlooked certain behaviors or accepted unhealthy dynamics in relationships. The vulnerability you might have projected onto others reveals a weakness within yourself that you can address. Machiavelli's teachings are uncomfortable, but they offer profound wisdom. His point isn't that humans are inherently evil. It's that we are inherently self-interested. People will act in their own best interests, even if it means betraying those closest to them. This is not something to resent or fear, but something to acknowledge. Once you understand this, you can begin to build relationships that are based on a more realistic understanding of human nature. You can learn to spot the warning signs of potential betrayal before it happens, and you can learn to distance yourself from people who don't have your best interests at heart. But here's the liberating truth. When you stop seeing betrayal as a personal attack and start seeing it as a natural consequence of human nature, the emotional devastation becomes more manageable. You stop feeling blindsided by it. You stop giving away your emotional power to people who haven't earned it. And in that space of emotional clarity, you can begin to form stronger, more resilient relationships that are grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Betrayal, while painful, is not the end of the story. It is an opportunity for growth. It's an invitation to stop seeing the world through the lens of idealism and to start seeing it through the lens of clarity and truth. When you can accept that betrayal is not a personal affront, but a natural occurrence in the human experience, you free yourself from its sting, and in doing so, you gain the strength to build relationships that are not easily broken. As we delve deeper into Machiavelli's philosophy, it becomes clear that emotional independence is not just a tool for surviving betrayal. It is a cornerstone of true power. In a world where loyalty is often fragile, where relationships are subject to the whims of self-interest, emotional detachment offers a shield from the volatility of human behavior. Machiavelli himself understood that emotions, especially the emotions we invest in others, can cloud our judgment and make us vulnerable to manipulation. The pain of betrayal, the disappointment of unreciprocated loyalty, all arise because we have allowed ourselves to depend emotionally on others for our sense of stability. But what if we could master emotional independence? What if we could rely on our own internal sense of strength, instead of seeking validation and loyalty from external sources? This is where Machiavelli's philosophy diverges from simple cynicism. He doesn't advocate for cold, detached interactions or for avoiding human connection altogether. Rather, he proposes a strategy for building relationships and navigating the world. That involves detaching your sense of self-worth from the actions and approval of others. When you no longer rely on others to validate your worth, you free yourself from the destructive cycle of dependence and disappointment. Emotional independence doesn't mean shutting people out or becoming indifferent to their needs. It means understanding that your value is not determined by their approval or loyalty. Your self-worth comes from within. When you're emotionally independent, you're no longer beholden to others for your happiness or sense of security. This allows you to navigate the complexities of human relationships with a sense of clarity and control. Take a moment to reflect. How often do you place your emotional well-being in the hands of others? How many times have you altered your behavior, sacrificed your values, or compromised your needs in order to gain someone's approval or affection? It's a natural instinct to seek connection, but when we place too much of our emotional security in others, we become vulnerable. We allow others to hold power over us without realizing it. Machiavelli's advice isn't about avoiding relationships or becoming emotionally distant. It's about maintaining control over your own emotions, over your own sense of self. When you are emotionally independent, you no longer fear betrayal, because you recognize that the only betrayal that truly matters is the one you inflict upon yourself by giving away your power. In the game of power, those who are emotionally dependent are at the mercy of others. They are driven by a need for approval, a desire for loyalty, and a fear of abandonment. These emotional needs can cloud their judgment and lead them to make decisions based on insecurity rather than clarity. But when you master your own emotional landscape, when you stop relying on others to define your worth, you gain an incredible advantage. This shift in mindset allows you to build relationships that are based on mutual respect, not emotional need. You no longer invest in relationships simply for the sake of receiving validation or affection. Instead, you engage with others from a place of strength and independence, understanding that your value is not contingent upon anyone else's opinion or loyalty. Machiavelli understood that emotional independence is the key to lasting power. He believed that rulers, leaders, and anyone in a position of influence must learn to detach themselves from their emotional attachments in order to make rational, strategic decisions. In a world where loyalty is fleeting and self-interest reigns, emotional independence becomes a form of power. By embracing emotional independence, you open yourself up to greater clarity and control. You are no longer blindsided by the actions of others, because you are no longer emotionally invested in outcomes that are beyond your control. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become the master of your own emotions, your own life. As we move forward, we will explore how to build relationships and alliances that are grounded in strategic thinking, not emotional need. We will discuss how to navigate the complexities of power dynamics with wisdom and clarity, and how to avoid the traps of manipulation and betrayal. But first, let's take a closer look at how you can begin to practice emotional independence in your daily life. Machiavelli was not the only thinker to recognize the complexities of human nature and the shadows that lurk within us. He shared his insights with a brutal honesty, but he wasn't alone in his recognition of the darker side of human behavior. Philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche and psychologists like Carl Jung have also delved into these shadows, offering perspectives that, while different from Machiavelli's, still align in understanding the power dynamics and self-interest that govern human actions. Carl Jung's theory of the shadow is particularly relevant in understanding why humans often act in ways that betray their true nature. According to Jung, the shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we reject or fail to acknowledge. These are the darker aspects of our personality, the traits we deny or hide, the impulses we suppress. The shadow can include feelings of jealousy, greed, resentment, and insecurity, traits that we all possess to some degree but often do not wish to face. Machiavelli understood this implicitly. He recognized that rulers, and indeed all people, must contend with their shadow. In The Prince, he advises that rulers should appear merciful, generous, and virtuous in the eyes of the public. But beneath this facade, they must be prepared to act with cunning and ruthlessness when necessary. Machiavelli knew that those who fail to acknowledge and understand the darker impulses of their own character are doomed to be undone by them. They are at the mercy of their own blind spots, vulnerable to manipulation and betrayal because they refuse to confront the shadow aspects of their own nature. This concept of the shadow is also echoed in Nietzsche's philosophy. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster." This is a warning about the dangers of repressing or denying the darker parts of ourselves. Nietzsche understood that to transcend the shadow, we must first confront it. Only by recognizing and integrating the darkness within can we truly understand the dynamics of power and human behavior. Both Machiavelli and Nietzsche shared the belief that true mastery, whether of oneself or of power, requires an awareness of the shadow. If you are to navigate the world of politics, influence, or relationships, you must first understand the darker aspects of human nature. Only then can you navigate the complexities of power without being consumed by them. But what does this mean for your personal life? How can you apply this understanding of the shadow to your relationships and interactions? It starts with self-awareness. Recognizing your own desires, insecurities, and impulses allows you to see them more clearly in others. It helps you understand why people behave the way they do, why they act in self-interest, why they may betray or manipulate. And perhaps most importantly, it helps you recognize when you are acting from your own shadow, when your decisions are being driven by jealousy, fear, or insecurity. The key here is not to reject these darker aspects of yourself, but to integrate them into your consciousness. When you become aware of your own vulnerabilities, you are no longer controlled by them. You no longer need to project your insecurities onto others or seek validation through manipulation or power games. Instead, you can build relationships based on mutual respect and understanding, knowing that everyone, including yourself, is driven by a complex mix of light and shadow. By confronting the shadow, you gain power over it. You no longer fear betrayal or manipulation because you recognize these behaviors not just in others, but in yourself. And once you understand that, you can navigate the world of relationships, power, and influence with wisdom and clarity. You stop being reactive, driven by unconscious impulses, and start being strategic, operating with full awareness of the forces at play. Machiavelli understood that to truly navigate the game of power, you must understand human nature, not just the good, but the bad, the selfish, and the dark. This is not about cynicism or bitterness, but about clarity. The more you understand the complexities of human behavior, the better equipped you are to avoid manipulation and betrayal, and the more effective you will be in building relationships that are based on truth, not illusion. As we continue, we will explore how to apply this understanding of human nature to the relationships in your life. How do you recognize manipulation before it strikes? How do you build alliances that last, based on mutual respect and shared values, instead of fleeting emotional needs? We will look at how to build power ethically, navigate the game of life, without being consumed by it, and remain true to yourself while mastering the dynamics of influence. Understanding human nature and the shadow is only the first step. The next challenge lies in applying this knowledge to relationships, whether in politics, business, or personal life. Machiavelli's insight into alliances and trust is particularly illuminating. He knew that the most powerful leaders were those who could strategically navigate the delicate balance between trust and caution. At the core of Machiavelli's advice is a simple truth: humans are not inherently loyal. Loyalty is often contingent on personal benefit. People will support you as long as it serves them, but when circumstances change, allegiances can shift like sand. This is why understanding motives, anticipating betrayal, and managing expectations are critical. Take friendships or professional alliances. Many people believe that shared values alone are enough to secure trust. Machiavelli would disagree. While shared values provide a foundation, he emphasizes the necessity of observation, testing, and timing. He advises leaders to carefully monitor behavior and to be prepared for situations where loyalty is challenged. Small tests of trust, subtle observations, and calculated risks help reveal the true character of those around you. An important principle emerges here: never assume that appearances reflect reality. A friendly smile or verbal assurances may conceal selfish motives. This doesn't mean you must become paranoid or cynical. It means you must be strategically aware. Consider the historical example of Cesare Borgia, whom Machiavelli admired. Borgia used alliances and favors not only to secure loyalty, but also to expose weakness in his partners, ensuring that he remained in control without relying solely on affection or honor. In personal relationships, this principle still applies, albeit more subtly. Romantic partners, close friends, or even family can exhibit behaviors driven by self-interest. By recognizing patterns such as inconsistency, manipulation, or passive-aggressiveness, you gain insight into the true dynamics at play. The skill lies in balancing empathy with caution, knowing when to trust, when to question, and when to act decisively. But strategic relationships are not only about defense, they are also about opportunity. Alliances can amplify your influence, provide protection, and open doors. The trick is to cultivate connections with intention, understanding both your needs and those of others. Reciprocity is the key. Provide value to others, but ensure it aligns with your goals. Machiavelli would argue that a leader or anyone seeking influence must actively shape relationships, rather than passively waiting for loyalty or respect to emerge. This brings us to a psychological layer often overlooked: the art of reading motives. By observing behaviors, reactions, and emotional cues, you can detect whether someone acts out of genuine loyalty or concealed self-interest. Subtle signs, hesitation, inconsistency, excessive flattery, or avoidance can all indicate underlying motives. Over time, these observations allow you to map the social terrain, understanding not just individual behaviors, but the network of influence and power around you. However, knowledge without ethical grounding can be dangerous. Machiavelli's ideas are often misinterpreted as endorsing ruthless selfishness, but a nuanced reading reveals a more sophisticated lesson. Strategic awareness does not necessitate cruelty. You can navigate relationships effectively while maintaining integrity, ensuring that your actions benefit both you and those around you. The true mastery lies in exercising power with discretion, knowing when to act, when to restrain, and when to withdraw. Finally, remember this: relationships are dynamic, not static. People evolve, circumstances change, and new information constantly emerges. Strategic awareness is not a one-time skill, it is a continuous practice. Observing, analyzing, adjusting, and sometimes disengaging is the hallmark of someone who understands the subtle art of human interaction. In the next section, we will explore practical applications of these principles, from navigating professional networks to managing intimate relationships. We will dissect real-world scenarios, examining how strategic observation, empathy, and foresight can protect you from manipulation, strengthen alliances, and create a foundation for lasting influence. The key takeaway: understanding human nature is only the beginning. True power lies in the skillful application of that knowledge to relationships, where awareness, caution, and strategy intersect. We've explored how to build strategic relationships, navigate loyalty, and understand human nature. But there's another side to the equation: manipulation. While the previous sections focused on defensive strategies, recognizing when to trust and when to distance yourself, this part delves into how others use manipulation to exert power and influence, and how you can guard yourself against it. Manipulation is a subtle, often unnoticed form of influence. It is not about brute force or direct confrontation, but about shaping perceptions, exploiting emotions, and subtly steering decisions in one's favor. And just as Machiavelli recognized that power is often wielded through appearance and perception, manipulation works on a similar principle. How things seem often outweighs how they truly are. The first step in understanding manipulation is recognizing it for what it is: the strategic use of influence to control another's actions or decisions. Manipulation often starts with the creation of a false narrative or an exaggerated image. It's about presenting a reality that fits the manipulator's goals, whether that's portraying themselves as the victim, the savior, or the hero of a situation. By framing a situation in a certain light, they make their target feel sympathy, guilt, or admiration, and these emotions cloud judgment. Consider how people often use charm to manipulate. A charismatic individual can make others feel special, important, and deeply understood. This is a powerful tactic to lower defenses. Once the target feels emotionally connected, the manipulator begins to shape their thoughts and behaviors subtly, often without the target even realizing it. The manipulator may suggest decisions, create dependency, or plant doubts in their victim's mind, all while maintaining an appearance of benevolence or care. But manipulation doesn't always come in the form of charm. It can also be more subtle, like guilt-tripping, playing on insecurities, or giving someone a gift that comes with strings attached. These behaviors often appear harmless or even generous on the surface, but their true intention is to create an imbalance in power. When someone uses emotional vulnerability as leverage, they are manipulating the other person's feelings for their own benefit. Machiavelli was acutely aware of this manipulation, especially in the context of politics and power. He noted that the appearance of virtue, generosity, kindness, loyalty could often be used as a strategic mask. By projecting an image of goodness, a ruler could secure loyalty and gain allies who believed in their virtue. But behind this appearance, the ruler would operate with calculated detachment, using manipulation as a tool to maintain control. In modern terms, this is the strategic use of charm, empathy, and even vulnerability to gain influence without revealing one's true intentions. In modern life, manipulation is widespread. It's in the workplace, in friendships, and even in families. It can be used for financial gain, career advancement, or social status. The key to recognizing manipulation is awareness, understanding when someone is using emotional appeals to control you. To protect yourself from manipulation, you need to trust your instincts. If something feels off, if you're being pushed to make decisions that don't sit right with you, pause and reassess. Here are some common manipulation tactics you might encounter. Flattery. While compliments are a natural part of human interaction, excessive or exaggerated flattery can be a tool of manipulation. It's meant to lower your defenses and make you feel indebted. Guilt-tripping, making you feel responsible for someone's emotional well-being or actions. This is often used to coerce you into agreeing with something or acting in a way that benefits the manipulator. The victim card. Playing the victim is one of the most powerful manipulation techniques. It's a tactic used to shift the focus onto the manipulator's supposed suffering, making you feel obligated to help or support them. Playing on insecurity. Manipulators often identify your vulnerabilities and exploit them. They know what makes you feel insecure, and they use that knowledge to gain control. Withholding. This is the tactic of denying affection, attention, or support in order to manipulate someone into doing something or feeling a certain way. Machiavelli would advise you to approach people's words and actions with strategic perception. This means watching how people behave when they think they have nothing to gain. Are their actions consistent over time, or do they change depending on their needs? How do they treat those who are in no position to offer them anything? This is where strategic discernment becomes essential. The manipulator will show themselves in the patterns of their behavior. By carefully observing the inconsistencies, the shifts in tone, and the hidden motives, you can see their true intentions beneath the surface. This is not a call for paranoia, it's a call for clarity. By recognizing manipulation before it strikes, you can protect your emotional and psychological well-being. You can learn to respond, strategically choosing when to engage and when to detach. Emotional independence, as we've discussed, is the shield that protects you from manipulation. When you are emotionally independent, you are not swayed by guilt, fear, or flattery. You act based on your internal clarity, not on external manipulation. But Machiavelli goes further. He acknowledges that manipulation is not inherently evil, it's a tool for survival and success. His teachings about power involve using the tools of manipulation when necessary, but with discretion and responsibility. The key is not to become consumed by manipulation, but to use it strategically in order to navigate complex human dynamics. As we continue, we will explore how to defend against manipulation by honing your emotional discipline and strategic perception. We will also look at how you can build a strong personal foundation that allows you to maintain your integrity while engaging in the game of power. Because while manipulation is a tool, it must never become your modus operandi. As we move deeper into the game of power, we must return to two crucial tools that will help you protect yourself from manipulation and betrayal: emotional discipline and strategic perception. These are the practical skills that allow you to maintain control of your actions, thoughts, and emotions, regardless of the external forces at play. First, let's talk about emotional discipline. This is the ability to feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. It means maintaining control over your reactions, even in the face of emotional provocation. Emotional discipline is the cornerstone of Machiavelli's strategy for those who seek power and influence. If you cannot control your own emotions, you are at the mercy of the emotions of others. Think about how easy it is to react impulsively when we feel slighted, threatened, or betrayed. These emotional responses can lead us to make decisions based on impulse, not logic, leaving us vulnerable to manipulation. If you give in to anger, jealousy, or fear, you risk losing control and allowing others to exploit your emotional state for their gain. Machiavelli's approach to emotional discipline is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing them and choosing how to respond. For example, when someone insults you or betrays you, instead of reacting immediately with anger or hurt, pause. Take a moment to assess the situation. Are you being manipulated? Is your emotional reaction serving your best interests? Or are you allowing someone else to push your buttons for their benefit? In practical terms, emotional discipline allows you to maintain mental clarity in moments of pressure or stress. It enables you to think strategically instead of reacting emotionally, which is crucial when navigating the complex world of power dynamics. Emotional discipline doesn't just protect you from manipulation, it gives you the ability to use your emotions as tools for your advantage. For instance, if you are in a difficult negotiation, emotional discipline will allow you to remain calm and composed, giving you the upper hand when others might be losing their cool. You will be able to see the dynamics at play clearly, without being clouded by your own emotional reactions. This allows you to make decisions that are not based on fear or pride, but on logic and strategy. The second key skill is strategic perception, the ability to observe people's actions and understand their true motivations. Regardless of what they say, perception is power. If you can read people accurately, you can predict their behavior, understand their needs, and navigate relationships with greater foresight. Strategic perception involves more than just listening to what people say. It's about paying attention to their behavior, their inconsistencies, and their underlying motivations. Machiavelli understood that people are often driven by personal desires, ambition, fear, greed, insecurity, and these desires will often manifest in subtle ways, in the form of body language, small actions, or patterns of behavior. To develop strategic perception, you must constantly observe and analyze. Watch how people behave when they think no one is watching. How do they treat those who can't offer them anything? Do they act one way when they're seeking something from you, and another when they no longer need you? These small clues can reveal a lot about a person's true character. Strategic perception is also about understanding the power dynamics at play. Who holds the power in a given situation? Who stands to benefit from a particular decision? And what are the hidden motivations behind the words people speak? By honing your perception, you can spot manipulation and deceit before it happens. This doesn't mean you should approach every relationship with suspicion or paranoia. Instead, strategic perception allows you to approach relationships with clarity. You can engage with others in an authentic way, while still being aware of their potential motives and interests. This is the balance that Machiavelli advocates. Empathy combined with awareness. Imagine you are in a meeting or social setting. Instead of only listening to the words being spoken, use your strategic perception to understand the true intentions behind them. Notice the body language, the tone of voice, the pauses in conversation. Are there contradictions between what's being said and what's being done? This kind of observation will allow you to make more informed decisions, whether you're choosing business partners, allies, or friends. In the world of power and relationships, knowledge is power. And the more you understand the people around you, their motivations, their fears, their desires, the better equipped you will be to navigate the complex social dynamics at play. Strategic perception allows you to read the situation accurately, make well-informed decisions, and avoid being manipulated or misled. But it's not enough to simply observe. To truly wield power, you must combine emotional discipline with strategic perception. This allows you to remain composed and thoughtful while observing the true nature of people and situations. It also gives you the ability to adjust your approach based on what you learn. Whether you need to distance yourself, deepen your alliance, or take a more assertive role, emotional discipline and strategic perception provide the foundation for decisive, empowered action. As we move forward, we will explore how these tools can be applied to building and maintaining influence. We'll discuss how to read situations with a Machiavellian eye, how to take advantage of opportunities when they arise, and how to protect yourself from becoming a pawn in someone else's game. For now, reflect on how emotional discipline and strategic perception can be incorporated into your own life. How can you control your emotions in moments of stress, and how can you sharpen your ability to read others? Once you have these skills, you will no longer be vulnerable to manipulation. You will be the one who controls the game. As we move further into the art of power, it's essential to understand one of Machiavelli's most controversial insights. Virtue is not an inherent moral good, but a tool and instrument to wield when it serves your greater purpose. Virtue, in this context, refers to qualities like generosity, loyalty, and honesty, the traits that society deems as morally upright. However, Machiavelli's advice does not suggest that virtue should be abandoned. Rather, he teaches that these traits should be used strategically, not as a moral compass, but as tools for gaining and maintaining power. In The Prince, Machiavelli famously discusses how rulers should appear virtuous in the eyes of their subjects, but should not hesitate to act in a contrary way when necessary. For example, a prince may feign generosity or piety when it benefits them, but secretly engage in actions that serve their own interests. The appearance of virtue is what wins the hearts and minds of people, but it is the strategic use of virtue that ensures a ruler's survival and success. This philosophy can be applied far beyond the realm of politics. In everyday life, we often place a high value on traits like kindness, honesty, and generosity, believing they are the foundation of good relationships and a just society. But in reality, these virtues can be exploited. People can use them to manipulate your emotions, gain your trust, and ultimately take advantage of you. Machiavelli's warning is not about the abandonment of virtue, but about recognizing that even virtue can be manipulated. For instance, generosity can be used to buy loyalty or silence. A person who showers others with gifts, praise, or favors may appear virtuous, but they are often seeking to establish dominance, create dependency, or acquire influence. In the same way, honesty can be wielded strategically. By offering unvarnished truths, a manipulator can present themselves as trustworthy, all while secretly working to achieve their personal goals. This does not mean you should abandon your moral compass. Rather, it's about recognizing that others will use these same virtues for their own gain. The skill is in knowing when to show virtue strategically and when to hold back. Virtue, in the Machiavellian sense, is a tool to project power and influence, not something to be blindly relied upon or given away without calculation. To effectively use virtue as a tool, strategic discernment is key. You must first understand the value of your virtues, what makes you generous, loyal, or compassionate, then apply them only when they align with your objectives. This might seem contradictory to conventional morality, but in the realm of power, the manipulation of virtue is an essential strategy for building influence, creating alliances, and even navigating conflicts. Generosity, for example, can be used as a means to create alliances or secure loyalty, but only when it serves your long-term interests. When a ruler or a person in power gives away resources, it should not be done out of altruism, but as a calculated move to gain support and secure their position. Similarly, Honesty can be used not simply to express moral clarity, but to control the narrative. By presenting yourself as the one who speaks the truth, you can gain trust and manipulate situations in your favor. When you understand that virtues can be used strategically, you begin to approach relationships with greater awareness. You recognize when others are using virtue to manipulate you, and you can counteract those tactics by acting with calculated virtue of your own. This is not a call to become disingenuous or manipulative in the conventional sense, but rather a call to be aware of how others perceive you, and how you can use that perception to your advantage. At the same time, Machiavelli teaches that exploiting your virtues strategically should never come at the cost of your integrity. While virtues are tools, they should still reflect your core values. Machiavelli's approach is pragmatic. You can use virtues like generosity or honesty, but you should always retain control over when and how they are used. The trick is to understand when to employ your virtues and when to keep them hidden. The power lies not in being virtuous, but in knowing when and how to be virtuous, and to whom. In the next section, we will explore how you can master the use of virtues in your personal relationships, professional interactions, and public persona. We'll examine how to carefully balance showing your virtues with using them strategically to influence the dynamics of your environment, and how this balance can help you protect your power while maintaining control. As we move toward the conclusion of our exploration into the strategies of power, we arrive at the most important principle of all: personal sovereignty. The ultimate power, according to Machiavelli, is not found in dominating others or amassing wealth, but in mastering yourself. Personal sovereignty means having control over your own emotions, desires, and decisions, not being swayed by external forces, but standing firm in your own convictions and sense of self-worth. Throughout this journey, we have seen how people's actions are often driven by self-interest, how loyalty is conditional, and how even virtue can be used as a tool for manipulation. But amidst all these external dynamics, the most important factor in maintaining power and maintaining peace is self-mastery. When you are emotionally independent, when your sense of security and worth is not dependent on others, you no longer fear betrayal, manipulation, or loss of power. You become untouchable, not because you are invulnerable, but because your strength comes from within. Personal sovereignty begins with understanding yourself, your emotions, your motivations, and your vulnerabilities. Who are you when no one is watching? What are the things you truly want in life, and what are the fears or insecurities that drive your actions? To become your own sovereign, you must confront these questions honestly and without hesitation. The process of self-discovery is not easy, but it is necessary for true power. One of the core aspects of personal sovereignty is emotional independence. If you are at the mercy of your emotions, fear, anger, envy, or pride dictate your actions, then you are not in control of your life. Emotional independence means recognizing your feelings and responding to them with intention rather than reaction. It means standing firm in your convictions, regardless of the external pressures or emotional pulls of those around you. Machiavelli's lesson on emotional independence is a call to detach your worth from the validation of others. When you depend on others for your self-esteem, you risk being manipulated by their actions and desires. You become vulnerable to betrayal and disappointment because your sense of self is in the hands of people who are as self-interested as you are. But when you build your sovereignty from within, when your sense of worth is anchored in your own principles and values, you are no longer swayed by the whims of others. Consider the historical examples of great leaders, such as Julius Caesar or Queen Elizabeth I. These were individuals who mastered not only the art of power, but also the art of self-control. Their success was not based on external alliances alone, but on their ability to lead themselves with clarity and conviction. Their emotional detachment allowed them to make decisions not based on momentary impulses, but based on the larger strategic picture. To become a true sovereign, you must also take full responsibility for your actions and decisions. This is a crucial aspect of personal sovereignty, the ability to own your mistakes and learn from them. When you are in control of your life, you no longer blame others or external circumstances for your failures. Instead, you see them as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. This kind of responsibility builds trust, not only in others but in yourself. At the core of personal sovereignty is self-disciplining, the ability to act with purpose and control, regardless of external chaos. It's about taking action that aligns with your long-term goals, not reacting impulsively to every immediate desire or challenge that arises. This requires patience, focus, and resilience. When you achieve this kind of inner mastery, the external world begins to reflect it. You will notice that people no longer manipulate you with their emotional appeals, because you have learned to observe and respond strategically. Instead of being the pawn in someone else's game, you become the one who sets the rules. This is where the power truly lies. True power is not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. And when you master yourself, you can navigate any situation, any relationship, with clarity and control. Whether in politics, business, or personal life, the ability to maintain your emotional sovereignty allows you to stay steady, make wise decisions, and achieve long-term success without being swayed by short-term emotions or manipulation. So, how do you begin to develop this personal sovereignty? Start by taking an honest look at your own life. Where do you give away your power? Where do you allow others to dictate your emotions or decisions? How can you start to detach your worth from the opinions and actions of those around you? Begin to practice emotional discipline, strategic perception, and self-responsibility, and over time, you will find yourself moving with more confidence, more strength, and more clarity than ever before. In the final part of this series, we will explore how to use personal sovereignty to build relationships that are authentic, strategic, and ultimately empowering. We'll discuss how to lead from within, how to influence others without compromising your integrity, and how to navigate the world with a sense of self-mastery that allows you to thrive, no matter the challenges you face. Now that we've explored the importance of emotional discipline, strategic perception, and personal sovereignty, it's time to shift our focus to the final component of power, building relationships that are both authentic and strategic. Relationships, when approached correctly, can be your most powerful asset. Whether in the boardroom, the political arena, or your personal life, your ability to build and maintain strong, strategic connections will dictate your success or failure. Machiavelli understood that alliances, whether political, social, or personal, are central to maintaining power. But he also knew that true loyalty is rare. Relationships are often based on mutual benefit and shifting self-interests. The key is to build alliances that are strong enough to weather the inevitable changes in power, but flexible enough to adjust when circumstances shift. This is where authenticity becomes crucial. While Machiavelli advocated for the use of appearances as a tool in power, he didn't discount the need for genuine connections. The most powerful individuals are those who are able to blend authenticity with strategic thinking. Genuine relationships provide emotional support, create trust, and offer a foundation of stability. These relationships are necessary for personal growth and success, but they must also serve a broader strategic purpose. To build these kinds of relationships, you must first understand your own values and needs. What do you want from the people you connect with? What do they want from you? Authenticity in relationships doesn't mean being open to everyone. It means being authentic to your values and to those who align with them. When you clearly understand your own goals and boundaries, you can engage with others in a way that serves both their needs and yours, while keeping the larger objective in mind. Machiavelli was a master at balancing authenticity with strategic manipulation. He suggested that rulers be both virtuous in appearance and ruthless when needed, but he also emphasized the importance of selecting the right allies. It's not enough to simply surround yourself with people who support you. You must choose those who bring value to the table. In your own life, the same principle applies. When building relationships, always assess the value each person brings to your life. Do they help you move closer to your goals? Are they offering real support, or are they simply reinforcing your sense of security without contributing meaningfully? This doesn't mean distancing yourself from people who might be emotionally supportive or offer companionship, but it does mean being strategic about who you allow to enter your inner circle. Networking or creating a web of strategic relationships requires more than just surface-level connections. True influence comes from creating alliances with individuals who have complementary strengths and resources. Your network should consist of people who can offer you something you cannot achieve on your own: knowledge, expertise, power, or access to key opportunities. In return, you should be prepared to offer them something of equal value, whether it's loyalty, support, or a shared goal. In Machiavellian terms, this can be seen as the creation of a mutually beneficial system of alliances, where the relationships are forged on the principle of give and take. In politics, rulers would create alliances with powerful figures, not because they trusted them absolutely, but because those alliances offered strategic benefits. Similarly, in the personal or professional realm, you must create relationships that are based on mutual benefits, even if they are not always centered on affection or long-term loyalty. But while strategy is necessary, remember that authenticity remains essential. Authentic relationships are not solely transactional. They provide trust, stability, and a foundation of mutual respect. They offer a sense of belonging, emotional connection, and the support necessary to thrive. Genuine alliances are often formed when both parties believe they are working toward a shared vision, even if that vision is not entirely aligned with the broader goal of gaining power. Strategic relationships are also dynamic. They are not static. People change, and their needs and goals evolve. Therefore, the most successful individuals are those who can build long-term relationships that adapt to these changes. Monitor and reassess your alliances regularly. Are they still aligned with your objectives? Are there new people who can offer you greater benefits or more solid support? And, conversely, are there people who no longer align with your goals, whose presence may actually hinder your progress? Ultimately, power is not about manipulation alone. It's about knowing how to navigate the complex dynamics of relationships with both wisdom and clarity. By building relationships that are based on mutual respect, shared goals, and strategic value, you create a network that can help you weather the storms of betrayal, competition, and shifting allegiances. These relationships become a source of strength, not only because they provide support, but because they are built on the foundation of awareness, the awareness of both your needs and those of others. In the next and final part, we will discuss how to maintain these relationships, especially during times of adversity, and how to build your influence even when you're faced with betrayal, competition, and emotional challenges. We will focus on strategies for long-term success, based on the mastery of self and the strategic navigation of the relationships that matter most. As we near the conclusion of this exploration into power, relationships, and Machiavelli's timeless lessons, we must now turn our attention to the question of how to maintain influence when things get tough. In the game of power, adversity is inevitable. Whether through betrayal, competition, or unforeseen challenges, your position will be tested. The true test of a ruler's power, or anyone who seeks influence, is not in their ability to rise to the top, but in their ability to maintain their position when things are unstable. The most important principle here is resilience, the ability to withstand challenges without losing your composure, your direction, or your control. It's not just about surviving adversity, it's about thriving in it. Machiavelli teaches us that the key to maintaining influence during times of adversity is to maintain a steady course while remaining flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances. Those who cannot do both, who are rigid in their ways or constantly reactive to the shifting tides, are the ones who ultimately lose their power. One of the core strategies for maintaining influence during adversity is detachment. By detaching yourself emotionally from outcomes, you stop being swayed by fear, anger, or disappointment when things don't go according to plan. Instead, you become strategically aware of the situation, able to respond with clarity and purpose. Emotional independence allows you to make rational decisions, not reactive ones. This detachment doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means that you are able to evaluate situations objectively and act based on what will best serve your long-term goals. This detachment also allows you to distance yourself from those who might try to manipulate your emotions. In times of adversity, people will often try to exploit your fears, doubts, or insecurities. Strategic perception comes into play here, understanding the motivations of others and recognizing when they are trying to influence you based on their own self-interest. When you remain emotionally detached, you can see these tactics clearly and prevent them from affecting your decisions. Another important aspect of maintaining influence is flexibility. While detachment allows you to remain composed, flexibility ensures that you are able to adapt to changing circumstances. Power is not about rigidity, it's about adaptation. The best leaders, the most powerful individuals, are those who can adjust their strategies based on what's happening around them. The ability to recognize when a course of action is no longer serving your goals and then pivoting to something new is one of the key components of long-term success. Building long-term influence also requires you to maintain a sense of purpose. Even in the face of adversity, it is essential to keep your vision clear. Those who lose sight of their long-term goals, when they encounter obstacles, become disoriented and begin to make hasty, emotional decisions. But those who keep their end goal in mind, who understand that every setback is an opportunity to adjust the strategy rather than abandon the mission, are the ones who maintain their influence and power. In times of competition, when rivals are trying to outpace you, maintaining influence requires confidence in your own position and strategic alliances. Power is not just about what you can achieve alone, but about the network of relationships you cultivate. When facing external pressure, lean on these alliances that are not based on emotional attachment, but on mutual benefit and shared goals. They will provide you with the support you need to weather challenges, and in return, you will offer them the same. These mutually beneficial relationships are your foundation, your security in turbulent times. Furthermore, reputation plays a crucial role in maintaining influence. During adversity, others will watch how you respond. Do you buckle under pressure? Do you become erratic or defensive? Or do you maintain your dignity, remain composed, and act decisively? Your actions in times of adversity define how others perceive you and how much power you will retain. When you uphold a strong reputation for decisiveness and clarity, others will trust you more even when faced with challenges. Finally, strategic generosity can help cement your power during tough times. By offering help to others when they need it most, you build loyalty and goodwill. But this is not about selflessness. It is about strategically using generosity to create lasting alliances. When people owe you something, even if it is only gratitude, you have more leverage and more power. This doesn't mean you should give away resources indiscriminately, but it does mean that showing generosity at the right moment can yield tremendous strategic benefits. Ultimately, the power to maintain influence through adversity comes down to one thing: the ability to act with clarity and purpose. When you have emotional discipline, strategic perception, and a clear sense of your own sovereignty, you will always be prepared for the challenges ahead. The tides of fortune may change, but your ability to remain grounded, adapt, and act with foresight will ensure that you retain your position, no matter how turbulent the waters. As we close this series, reflect on the lessons from Machiavelli's philosophy. The game of power is not won in a single victory, but through constant, strategic navigation. You must be aware, detached, flexible, and always true to your purpose. It is these qualities, combined with the wisdom of understanding human nature, that will allow you to not only survive adversity, but to thrive in it. You now have the tools to not only navigate relationships, but to master your own emotional responses, read people with clarity, and make decisions based on strategy, not emotion. And in doing so, you will create a life of true power and influence, guided by wisdom and unshaken by the external forces that seek to sway you.